Hello everyone. Welcome back to day 56 of 100 days of data structures and algorithm coding. Um, I'm extremely, I wouldn't say, I'm not feeling quite alright, but the challenge is to complete 100 days, no matter what. So, unless I'm completely incapacitated, I'll still turn up for this stream. So yeah, let's keep it rolling. So today I'd like to go over linked list, a couple of questions I solved before, and try to remember some of the things, study all over again. Um, you know, I'll probably start a new topic coming week, or I don't know, anytime soon. But the point is, I would like to, have a look at some questions and see if I can, understand them, and also, read some of the questions I saw before. So let's take a look. So I was trying to put together a list, but I'm not going to do any coding today. I'll just try to explain my solutions, my previous solutions, and yeah, so carry on from there. So, um, let's see. This question says we should reverse a linked list, right? And we know a linked list is a list of connected nodes, right? Nodes arranged one after the other, like this image here. So I will just drag this image and put it here, right? So now here is a linked list that got reversed. I'll just bring this back to this point. This stream is going to be probably extremely short. I'm sweating a lot, even though I'm not in the hot environment. I'm not really feeling well, so yeah. So here is our input linked list, and we want to reverse it into this form, right? So how do we do that? Well, we know a linked list is made up of nodes, right? And a node is simply an instance of a node class. A node has two properties, right? So this node right here, this first is a node, this is also a node, this is a node. You can see they are connected, to each other, right? So this node right here has two properties. It has a value which is equal to 1 and a next property. Now the next property is where the connection to the next node happens, right? And it actually makes sense to call it next because that is where we can see the next node in our linked list, right? So every node in a linked list, I'll use a different color, so has a value and then a next property. Now the next value of this node right here, where 1 is, would be 2, right? Would be this 2 here, and then this 2 also has a next value to 3. Now I'll not call it 3 per se, but it's not 3. The value of the node is 3, but I'll just call it 3 for the sake of you know um this video. So this is also a node where the value is 3. The next value of this node where 3 is the value is 4, and so on, right? So the first node in a linked list is called the head, right? So this is the head of our linked list, and the last node of the linked list is called the tail, right? Now the tail usually points to none. Now in a normal state, right, in the normal state of a linked list, we'll have a linked list. So this is how the node class is defined. So we have a node. The node will have a value, right, and a next property. Now by default, the next value of every node in a linked list will start with none, right? The next value of a node in its default state is none, even though the node has a value, let's say any value, it could be 1 or so, right? When the node exists solely outside of a linked list, its next value is none, right? So that's what so let me quickly clean this. Okay, so let's go back again. I'll remove this here, right? So now that we know the first node in our linked list is the head and the last node is the tail, and the last node has a value, a next value set to none, how would we reverse this linked list? Now we know at the end of the day the head becomes the tail, right? The head becomes the tail, which is here. You can see the head went from this position to the last position, and the tail became the first node, right? So how do we reverse a linked list? By changing the position of the head and the tail and every node in between. Well, to do that, right, we simply need to set a reference to our node, right? So what do I mean by that? We need a previous value. We need a previous value for each node, right? A previous value for each node is simply it's simply going to start with none, right? Like I did here. So here's my solution. Let me just take this. Okay, the solution is probably in the submission, but let me show you what happens. We want to take this node, right? Probably the first node, right? The first node here, I'll put 1 like this and set its its next value to none like this, and then connect every other node after it, right? So 2 will appear here. Now 2, the reason why we need a previous value is because we want to set the next connection, right? The next connection to the head, which is now our tail. So 2 will appear here, right? The previous value of 2 will be 3, right? So we'll connect 3 here as well. The previous value of 4 will be, of 3 is 4, so we'll put 4 here. The previous value of 4 is now 5, right? And then we'll put 5 here and we'll return this. So now we'll return the previous. So here is what we need to do. Based on this explanation, at the start of our operation, right, obviously we are going to iterate through every node in the linked list, starting from the head all the way to the end of the node, right? Now we need to reset the previous node each time, right? The previous node is simply the node after the current node we've seen, right? And in this case, when we are traversing from the head node all the way to this point here, right, the previous node will be the next node each time, right? It will be this and that and this. But starting with the head, right, the head also, the head node has to have a next value, right? The next value of this head is simply going to be equal to none, right? Because it will become the last node in the linked list. So here's what we need to do. We need to take a current node. I'll call it CN, right? This is our current node. We'll set it to the head, right? Now it will still be connected with every other node like this. I'll just put 2, 3, 4, right, and 5, and then none here. Now we will need a previous node. Previous node will be set to none, right? Previous node will be set to none at first. So here's what happens, right? When we start traversing the nodes in a linked list, we'll reset the node each time. So I'll put this traversal, right? Or just say loop. Now traversing is simply a loop that checks for each node. So I'll put loop here. Let me use a different color. So I'll take this here, set our loop. So this will be the loop that goes through the linked list, right? So while we are traversing the linked list, obviously we're going to start from the head. So we'll need to keep a reference of, you know, the previous node, right, and the current node in the linked list. So I'll say the next node to connect in the reversal step will be, so I'll call this next node, right. Next node will simply be equal to the current node's next value, right. This next value of this node will be here. So we'll say current node's next value will be 2. So I'll put 2 here, and then take every value here and put 4 and then 5. Now we know 5 is the tail. 5 will have a next value set to none, right. Let me write this properly so that we see what's going on inside. So here is it. So we have 3, 4 and then 5. So this is the next node of our current node here. Our current node is simply from 1 all the way to this point, right. And the next node here is simply from 2 downwards. So now we need to also set the current node's next value, right. The current node's next value, which is still the head, right, which is the current node is still 1 at this point. So the current node's head value will be the previous node, right, will be the previous node, and we'll do that again. So we'll say current node's next value. So I'll say current node cn, right, cn dot next is simply going to be equal to the previous node, right. Now what is the previous value? The previous value is simply none, right. It's simply none. So here's what you will get at the end of the day. I'll still represent it each time, right. So we'll have current node will become 1 and then none, like this. Now this is what our current node is, right. Currently this is what our current node is, and then what we do next is to set the previous node, right. We set the previous node to become this current node now. So our previous value, right, our previous value becomes this, right. Our previous value becomes this, and then the current node now, the current node becomes the next node. So current node cn becomes the next node, which is going to be next node. I'll just put it like this, next node, right. Next node is also equal to 2, 3, 4 and then 5, right. So we make these swaps in between each loop. So in the next iteration, right, in the next iteration we keep a copy of the next node, and then we set the previous value to the next. So let me do for the second iteration. So in the second iteration, our previous node will change. Our previous node currently is this, so it's simply this and that, right. So we'll change this again. So so let me see. Oh, I made a mistake here. I didn't put where the the next node of this current. Oh, so here, this is it. Sorry, I just put the value of the previous directly. This is also equal to the previous, right. This is also equal to the previous as well. So we make this swap in every iteration. So we keep a copy of our current node next value, and then we set the next value of the current node to the previous value, and then we set the previous to the next node, and so on. So let me just show you now. So here we'll have all of this. So this is our current node, right. This is the first iteration. We end up here. So in the next iteration, our next node will start from 3, right? We'll start from 3 from this point all the way here. So let's see what we can do. So I'll just say you know, loop 2, right? So current node is simply going to be equal to, sorry, the next node, yeah, the current node at this point, right, at this point is simply this, is simply from 2. So 2 becomes our head. Let me write this properly. 2 becomes our head, 3 is the next value, 4, 5, yeah, so and none. I mean, that's good. So at the end of the day, here's what we need to do. We take this current node, we keep the next value, right? The next node is simply going to be from this point, this current node's next value. So it's simply going to be 3, 3, 4, and then 5, right? 3, 4, 5. The previous value, we know the previous value is this 0, I mean 1 to none, right? 1 to none is our previous value. So we set the next value of our current node here, right? The next value of our current node to the previous, right? We set the current value of our we set the next value of our current node to our previous in the other loop, right? So here's what will happen. So current node's next value is simply going to be equal to the previous, right? The previous node, and the previous is simply this, right? The previous is going to be this, so is 1 to none. Let me use a different color. I'll say 1 to none, right? So the next node of this current node is simply going to be 1 to none, right? And then we'll take the previous value and set it to the current node, and we'll go over again. So here's what will happen. So we'll take the previous value and set it to the current node. So at the end of the day, the current node, which is this, right, we started from 2, right, all the way to 5, will become something like this. We'll be looking like this: 2, 1, and then none, right? 2, 1, and none. So this is what our current node will look at this point, right? And then we'll set this current node to the previous, right? So this will become our previous, right? And then our current node now will become this next node here, right? So we'll still reset this again. We'll say we'll say current node, sorry, I'll do Cn. Current node is simply going to be equal to the next node, right? So is equal to next node, right? And this is simply 3, 4, and then 5, right? So we'll do this in the next iteration again. So the steps are really I'll say I'm not going to the steps to reversing a linked list, right? It's simply keeping a reference of the previous node, which is probably the node from the start, right? And then resetting the next node, right? The value of the next node to the previous node, right? So let's see. Let me just continue with this. I'll write a note at the end of the day. So in loop 3, right, I'll just put this as loop 3. Sorry, loop 3. Let me put an asterisk here to make this, different, right? So this is our first loop. So we started off with that. So our current node, right, is equal to 3, 4, and then 5, right? Now in this loop, we'll take a copy of the next node. So the next node here, next node is simply going to be 4, 4 and 5, like this, right? 4 and 5, and then we'll set the next value of this current node. So current node dot next will be equal to our previous node, right? So our previous node was what? Our previous node was this 2, 1 and then none, right? So we'll do that again. We'll say previous current node next value is previous, so it's going to be equal to the previous. This will be set to previous, right? And then we know previous is simply 2, 1 and then none, right? 2, 1 and none. So what do we do next? Then we'll set the previous node to be equal to the current node, right? The previous node is simply going to be equal to the current node here. So this is 2, 3 and 1. So previous node, current node dot next will change to something like this. So the current node, right? Current node is simply 3, 4, 5, right? So current node dot next will no longer be 3, 4, 5. I mean, see, this is the current node. So current node dot next will be replaced with the previous value. So current node will simply look like this. Current node will become 3. Sorry. So current node dot next, right? Initially, current node dot next had all of this here, but when we change current node dot next to the previous value, we'll have 3 connected to 2, connected to 1, and 1 is connected to none, right? Connected to none like this. So our previous node now will become this, will become the current node. So previous node, right, is equal to the current node. So Cn, right, or is simply going to be this, right? This is going to be our previous node at the end of the day, and then our current node now will change to this. Current node will become the next we set here, which is 4, 4, 5, like this, 4 and 5, right? So in the next iteration, right, in the next iteration, I'll put loop 4, right? Loop 4, right? Our current node, we know our current node is 4 and then 5, right? 4 and 5. So what do? We need to take the next value of this node. So I'll say next node, right? Next node is simply going to be equal to 5. The next node of this current node is 5, right? 5 connected to none. So 5 and none. This is still correct, right? 5 and none. I can put the none here or choose not to, but let's put it there anyway. So now we have the next node, right? We keep a reference of the next node. Now we set the next value of the current node to our previous node, right? So the current value of this next node, so cn.next, current node.next is simply going to be equal to the previous node, and we know our previous is simply so 3, 2, 1 and none, right? So it's going to be 3, 2, 1 and then none, right? None is here. Now so after setting the next node of our current node, we then set the previous node, right? We set the previous node. So this current node then becomes this. I'll use current node becomes 4, 3, 2, 1 and then none, right? You can see 4, 3, 2, 1 and none, and then we set the previous node to this current node. So previous node becomes this current node here. So it's going to be equal to the current node, right? Cn for current node, and then we take the we set the next node, the current node back to this next node that we kept here. So this is going to be equal to so say we'll say current node is going to be equal to the next node, right? Next node, and this is simply 5 to none, right? Like this. So this is our current node now. So in the fifth iteration, right? In the next iteration anyway. So so this will be loop 5, right? We'll take the current node. We know our current node is simply 5 to none, right? 5 and none. And then in this loop we'll set the next value of this node, right, to our previous node, right? We'll set the next value to our previous node. So this node currently has a next value set to none, so we can't say current node dot next is. So the condition for this loop will be such that the current node has a next value that is not none, right? That is an actual node with a value. So current node here, so Cn dot next, we still do this. Cn dot next is set to the next node, so next node is going to be Cn dot next. As usual, we'll set it to the next node of the current node, right? And then we take this node here, right, and set the next value of this node to the previous, right? So the next value of this node is going to be the previous. So we'll say next current node Cn dot next is going to be equal to the previous node, and we know the previous node is simply, let me shift this to the side a bit. So we'll say Cn dot next, right, is equal to the previous node, and the previous node is simply every other value before, right? So I'll just take this color here, right? This is just to visualize how to reverse a linked list. So our previous node will have a value of 4, 3, 2, 1, and none. So this is going to be 4, 3, 2, 1, and then none, right? And none, like this. So this is going to be our previous node, and the current node now will look like this. The current node, right? Previous node is this. So when we set the current node's next value to the previous, right, we set the current node value to the previous, the current node will look something like this. So I'll change it to the green value. So Cn is going to be equal to everything else. So this is going to be 5, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then none, like this, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and none. Now you can see the reversal is beginning to take shape, right? And then we set the previous node will simply become the current node. So previous node is going to be equal to the current node, like this, right? And then we set the current node back to the next node. So we'll say current node should be equal to the next node, right? Next node, like this. Now the only reason why we'll keep iterating is if the current node has a next value, right? Now this current node here, right, had the next value set to none, so there's no point continuing with the next loop, so there will not be a next loop, right? And at the end of the day, right, we'll return will return the previous node, right? The previous node will contain the reversal of our current node, right? Of our linked list, sorry. The previous node will contain the reversed form of our linked list. As you can see here in green, we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and none, right, as the reverse form of our linked list, and this has been set to the previous. So at the end of the day, you return the previous node like this. So here's what you return at the end of the operations or every iteration in the linked list. So reversal of linked list begins with two nodes, right? It begins with two nodes, or it begins with a node and a previous value set to none, right? And then within your loop, right, while the current node has a next value, right, while the current node's value is not none, right, or while the current node value is not none, yes, while the current node value is not none, we'll keep iterating until we reach the point where the current node is set to none. So, and while we are iterating, right, we'll keep a copy of the next node each time. So we'll need a next node, set the current node next value to the previous, right, to the previous, and then we'll set the previous to the current node, right, after changing its next value, and then we'll set the current node to the next node. So let me show you the step in our iteration. So here's what we'll do. We'll take the current node, right, so we'll set I'll call this so current node is going to be the head of our linked list, right? It's always going to start from the head, and then we'll have a previous node set, a previous value set to none at first. Now this previous will become the previous node in the reverse linked list, right? So in the iteration, right, when we are iterating through the linked list, right, here's what we need to do. We'll take the current node, right, we'll keep a copy of the next node in the linked list. So every time this current node will change to the next node, so we'll say next node, right, next node will be equal to the current node's next value, right, the current node next value, and then we'll set the current node dot next to become the previous, right, to become the previous, and the previous is simply none at first, so which means the head node in our original linked list will have a next value of none, which is this previous here. So, and then we'll set the previous to the current node, right, current node, and the current node's next value would have changed here. So the previous will build from node to node, right? So the previous node will become the current node, and then we'll set the current node to be reversed, or to be added to the reversed linked list, to be equal to this next node here. So we'll say next node like this. So here's all you need to do, and at the end of the day we'll return the previous node like this. So which is what I did here, right? So we have a linked list, and then we reversed it like this. So yeah, here's my solution. You can have access to my solution in the link below, to the GitHub repository. So here you can see we start with the head, we set the previous value to none, and while the current node is not none, right, while the current node is not none, we set the next value to the current node dot next, and then we take the current node next value, we set it to the previous, and then we set previous to the current node, and then the current node to the next node, and then at the end of the day, when we are done iterating, we simply need to return the previous node, right? So yeah, That's all we need to do to reverse a linked list. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I would have shared with you my solution for this, but I'm still, solving this question. I started it today, but like I said, I'm not feeling really well to continue this problem for long. So I'll solve this outside, and probably tomorrow I'll talk about it, my solution, and how it works. So yeah, that's it for today, and I wish you good luck and keep coding. Right. So take care. Bye. Let me check if there is any questions in the chat. Oh wow. So sorry. Oh, I am so sorry. I did not see your messages. Please don't be offended or don't be angry. Hello ransom. Nitula Nijan. Yeah, so I don't understand your question. If you can ask it again, I'll be glad to reply you. So what is none? You're asking what is none. Which parts did you not understand? So I would like to go over it for you. So I'll wait for like 3 minutes to see if you're going to respond. I'm not sure if you're still in the um in the stream right now. So I did not see your questions, and I'm sorry for that. So no replies. I'm still going to wait a little. Um, I'm still going to wait a little bit to see if you're going to reply. So I have about 1 minute left. Honestly, if you can ask the question properly, I'll keep that in mind and reply you in the comment section. How about that? Mm, okay, so I guess my network is not very good, so I may not see the questions on time, but I um I'll still be happy to reply you guys anytime I can. Right. So no questions, no questions. Okay, so we continue tomorrow. Please, goodbye. Bye. Yeah. Please, if when you get back, please you can leave. I'm not gone yet. When you get back, you can leave your questions in the comment section, and I will reply them. I'll reply them. Um, Even on a live stream, on a live video, I will do that as well. Yeah. Okay. So no more questions. Means I can go now. All right. Bye again.